Namaste. Welcome to our 77th Bhagavad Gita talk. We're still in the division between the divine and the demonic. We quite some time got back. We got through the good divine things. Now we're on the demonic ones. We have a few verses left to go because evil is created and thinks of many ways to manifest itself. So, the 18th verse of the 16th chapter, clinging to egotism, power, haughtiness, desire, and anger. In other words, all of these things, they pride themselves on. Well, I know I have a temper. Oh, I'm Scotch Irish. You know, we have tempers. I grew up with them. Maybe you didn't. If not, you're blessed. So but they hold to it because see, that's all they have. Their souls are empty. They have only darkness and they have only malice, really. And therefore, all of these things, egotism, power, haughtiness, desire, anger, they're proud of it. They have to be. That's all they have. They have an Atma, but they don't know it. So then it says, these malignant people, that's what they are. They are poisonous, which is why we separate from association and we avoid association with people like that. And that's not being snobbish. That's just living at peace, living like a human being, not like a demon. These malignant people hate me. They have hatred, includes aversion. Means they don't think, oh, God, you're there, I hate you. Some people do. But they hate all that is God. Therefore, they hate God. If you say, I hate everybody that lives in Detroit, and there's somebody they know in Detroit, well, it means they hate them because they said everybody. So these malignant people hate me in their own and in other bodies. In other words, they hate themselves, of course. A lot of really unfortunate behavior is self-loathing, but self-loathing lived out. Now, there are some people who do just set about to kill themselves. It's considered a cute little joke among people that drink alcohol about the man glugging the booze, and someone said, you know, that's slow poison. And he said, I'm in no hurry. Isn't that cute? So, and a lot of drunk people, that is why they drink. They would like to kill themselves. They can't bring themselves to take outright poison. So they kill their conscience. They kill their moral sense. And that's what's good and positive in them. There are people that, you see, our basic makeup is divine. So if you go down deep enough, there's nothing else but divine. So they concentrate on the upper stuff, the upper scabs, and revel in that. And again, they cling it. But at the same time, they hate it. You see, isn't that sad? So they truly hate themselves. And they know they're harming themselves. And especially the spiritual life, spiritual consciousness. They hate that in themselves. They've been able to banish it as best they can, and they hate it in everybody else. And it's just interesting to see that if they just hear about something peripheral, someone 20,000 miles away, their reaction is, right? I mean, I see it all the time. Hatred of India. It's interesting. Hatred of India is hatred of Sanatana Dharma and hatred of people who follow it. I mentioned India because, well, there are Indian people here, but a lot of people never meet them. They don't see them. They don't have an encounter with them. But they do that. They hate idolaters, you see. So it's just all hatred of the divine. And therefore, they can never be your friends, really. Any attachment they have is some weird, perverted ego mechanism. And it's not you they're in love with, it's them. These malicious evildoers, and they are malicious because they want to always spread it. I mentioned drunkenness. I may have said this before, but let me say it again. There's two kind of basic drunks. The mouthy drunk, the talkative drunk. The more drunker they are, the more they talk. And the more ebullient they are. Sometimes they try to be good, jolly good fellows, and how are you, everybody? And then there is the quiet, morose drunk. Now, I will tell you truly, I detest the mouthy drunk because they're sociopaths. But I really grieve for the silent, sad drunk who sits and they get progressively drunk. They don't talk, they don't say anything to anyone, but they have not relieved their suffering. They have not anesthetized themselves, and they sink more into that sorrow. And they do need love and care and patient understanding. And if all your life, all you do is just be there and they know you care, do it. They they merit it. So there are some negative people in negative state we need to even reach out to, even though we won't change them, chances are. But it is possible for the yogi. I've told it, I will tell this again, um, because it's so valuable. I knew a wonderful man named Luther Mckinnie. Luther Mckinnie was born with things striking against him because one, he was born in the South, he was born dirt poor, and he was born a Negro. And Luther was one of the most blessed souls I've ever known. And he became a yogi. He moved to the north and went to live in Harlem. Uh, I don't know how much better that was than back in the South, but anyway, he moved to Harlem and lived there. And, he became a yogi. The holiest place I've ever been in America, I mean that dead seriously, I'm not exaggerating, was Luther's meditation room. And it wasn't even a room. In the early part of the 20th century, oftentimes in houses, and in this case, some of it was the apartment houses, they would have a little kind of secret room. I say secret, but there would be a door, but the door would be about 3 feet high and about that wide, and it would have kind of a little latch at the top. And in my hometown, there was one very nice house, and on the second floor, there was a room, a beautiful thing, and then there was a closet, and um, a friend of mine was staying there temporarily and said, "Look at this," and opened the closet, and there was one of those little doors. Often there'd just be a tiny room, and people put valuables in there. And but in this one, I opened it up, went through it. I was in a whole room toward the front of the house, a beautiful room. Uh, Sometimes people used to stash their rather on tilt, mentally on tilt relatives and things like that. But usually in the South, they put them in the back. But this was in the front. But anyway, there it was. So there was this little door, and you went in. Oh, I couldn't estimate the size. Say 8 by 8 at the absolute 8 by 8 at the biggest chest. There was about 6 by 6, 7 by 7. So at the far side of the little room, there was a small kind of altar, and there were holy pictures there on the altar, especially of the masters of self realization and fellowship. So, I mean, we literally all crawled in one by one and sat there. We meditated with Luther. And I tell you, I mean it, that little spot before we even meditated. I have never been, I've been in holy places in America. My grandmother's house, when you stepped through the door, you were in another world. But I tell you, that was the holiest place I've ever been. Dr. Lewis, Yogananda's very great disciple, in fact, his first American disciple, knew and loved Luther very much. And he said to him, Luther, you purified your heart, and from now on you'll purify other people's hearts. And he did. And Luther's profession was a guard in the subway. Imagine he had to wear a gun. So Luther stood there with his mind on God down in the subway. The gun was on his belt, but his mind was with God. And one day, two sloppy drunk women came by and staggered up to him and started talking to him. You know, they never say anything worth saying or hearing, but he was nice and he smiled and he was kind, and what little was good he integrated with their speech, and on they staggered. And they did this several times over a course of weeks. They come up and stand there and weave, and you know how it is. I be nice if you don't know, but I know, unfortunately. And they do this. Well, then one day, here again came weaving up just one of them. And she walked up to Luther and said, What did you do to my friend? Because, see, people that are living in negativity, they don't like losing anybody out of their cesspool world. So she said, What'd you do to my friend? He said, What do you mean? I didn't do anything to her. I've only seen her when the two of you spoken with me. She said, No, you did something, because she was an alcoholic just like me. And now she's completely sober, and she tells everybody that you cured her of being an alcoholic. See? Just by his presence. And he's left this world, but he'll live in the hearts of those of us who knew him as long as we live. And of course, he is with the great masters now. What a wonderful, wonderful thing. Okay, back to the bad people. Now the 19th verse, these malicious evildoers, cruel, both of themselves also, sad to say, most degraded of men, I hurl perpetually into only the wombs of demons here. Here means in this world. In other words, they're born over and over again with people as foul and horrible as them. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody born in those families is that way, because we all have different kinds of karma. And they may not be horribly degraded people, but because they were, say, cruel to people like that, then they're born among them. Hopefully, then they learn to sympathize with them, but they could become like them. But so it is. You can't tell. I remember the most impressive person I've ever met in America was just a young boy. He would have been 16 or 17 years old. He was a friend of a cousin of mine. I just met him once at my cousin's house. If I've ever seen nobility in my life, it was that young boy. I mean, he just was it. He embodied this. I mean, it isn't just like being like upper class. I mean, he embodied a noble, noble mentality. Everything about him. incredibly intelligent. To say beautifully mannered is an understatement. And everything about him was amazing. And he and my cousin, we went to a performance of Handel's Messiah together, actually, and then went back. And then when he was gone, I said, I just can't believe him. He's such a remarkable person. My aunt said, yes. And you want to know something? His family aren't fit to shoot. We Kentucky people say things like that sometimes. Uh, she said, they're worthless. They're low, dishonest, lying, lazy, vile people. We don't know how he got in that family. So it does happen. So if you see somebody from a horrible family, well, wait and observe them and see if they are. But usually they're together and they degenerate further in this life together. And I have seen situations when I can give you an example. And coming up to almost the end of this, I was 7 or 8 years old. I think it was 8. And we lived right on the town square. We had an apartment above a business. And I went down and I saw a boy 6 years old searching in the gutter and picking up cigarette ends. I mean, like that. And I said to him, what are you doing that for? He said, I want to smoke them. I said, you you smoke those? I was from a family where there was no tobacco, no alcohol. So the smoking drinking world was a world unknown to me, a world I didn't care to know. And this is a 6-year-old child. And I said, but that's really bad for you. Don't you understand? I didn't give the religion thing. God doesn't like it. You'll go to hell. Anyway, but I talked to him and I just talked to him sensibly. He was a wonderful, wonderful little boy. And I just spoke to him. He was very good hearted. And I said, will you promise me you won't do this anymore? He said, yes, I promise you. He kept his promise. You know what happened? His mother, father, and brothers and sisters hated me. And I was warned that they were planning to beat me up if they could ever find me in a situation where they could get a hold of me. I'm serious. And I got cursed at a lot, not by mommy and daddy. They were home mostly in a drunken stupor, but by the older brothers and sisters. I mean it. It was not fun. But just think, but that poor child was there, but he was rescuable. And later on, when I had gone back to that town and was in high school, the family didn't belong there, weren't there anymore. They moved somewhere. But I remember that really, truly good little boy. So then, so often in a wooden house, a golden room we find. That's a lovely little maxim from the 19th century. In fact, I read it and thought, okay, when I meet people, however wooden that they may be, may I look for the golden room. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that little boy, I think, was more than just one room of gold. All right. Entering the demonic wombs, deluded birth after birth, after birth, not attaining to me, they fall into a progressively lower condition. Ultimately, they become animals again. It isn't common, but it does happen. For example, uh, oh no, um, yes, I've got to finish this thing and not leave you in the middle of it. Yes, one of Yoganandaji's disciples who lived there in the ashram with Yogananda told me that there was a cat that lived there. And the cat had human eyes. It did not have cat's eyes, it had human eyes. And she said it gave everybody the creeps. And that often some of the nuns would be standing somewhere talking to each other quietly, and they'd start to feel just really creepy, really awful. And they'd turn and look, and the cat would be standing there with those eyes, just looking at them. All right. Now, here's the story of the cat. One day, Yogananda brought this cat to one of the nuns. Brahmacharini Radhalila was her name. And he said, I want you to keep this cat in your room. I want you to feed it, look after it. Because in its previous birth, it was a human. And what it did to be born in this form, I will not tell you. Otherwise, you would hate it so much, you wouldn't be able to have it in the same room with you. But you must look after it and love it and take care of it and pray that it will be a human again in the next life. So there was an example, actually, that was known to people that I knew, and it does really happen. So let's do our best to be sure we stay on the upward way, and that thing doesn't happen, because we do bounce up and down and up and down, especially in transition periods in our evolution. So anyway, until then, thank you, and I'm looking forward already to our next get together.